All right. So you want to know about AI at work,
Yeah.
specifically in like public administration and how
Right.
it all relates to GDPR?
Hmm.
Well, we've got a fascinating deep dive for you today
Yeah.
based on a brand new report from the Swedish Data Protection Authority,
Uh-huh.
the IMY,
Right.
published just this month, February 5th, 2025.
Okay.
It tackles this very topic, generative AI and data protection. Now, I know GDPR can sometimes feel like a legal maze,
Yeah.
but we're here to guide you through it and uncover some truly interesting insights.
What I find particularly interesting about this report is the proactive stance the IMY is taking. They're not just focusing on enforcement and fines. They're trying to anticipate challenges and provide guidance for public administrations looking to embrace AI responsibly.
Yes, and I think that's crucial because you can't just throw AI into the mix and hope for the best, right?
Right, right.
One of the things that struck me is how they emphasize the importance of data protection, even when you might not be directly processing personal data.
That's a critical point. The report highlights how these powerful AI models are often trained on massive data sets that absolutely include personal data.
Right.
Even seemingly innocuous applications like using AI to summarize meeting minutes
Yeah.
could involve a model that's been trained on data containing names, addresses even sensitive information like health records.
Yeah.
It really underscores the interconnected nature of data in the age of AI.
So even if you think you're just dealing with generic information, there's a good chance personal data is lurking somewhere in the background. It brings to mind those targeted ads that seem to know what you're thinking before you do. A little unsettling, but it highlights how data can be used in ways we might not always anticipate.
Exactly, and that's precisely why the IMY is so focused on accountability from the get-go. They want organizations to establish clear policies, procedures, and thorough documentation before deploying AI systems. It's about responsible implementation, not just chasing the latest technological trends.
So instead of jumping headfirst into the AI pool, they're saying, hold on, let's make sure we have the proper safety measures in place first.
Precisely. Think of it like this. You wouldn't hand over the keys to a powerful piece of machinery without first ensuring the operator is properly trained and knows how to use it safely, right?
Right.
The same principle applies to AI. The IMY wants organizations to thoroughly assess the risks, establish clear guidelines for usage, and ensure appropriate safeguards are in place.
Makes sense.
Oh,
Now, this report also dives into the distinction between data controller and data processor,
yeah.
which, if I'm being honest, always trips me up a bit.
Right.
Can you help break down those roles?
It's an important distinction, especially under the GDPR framework.
Right.
Essentially, someone always bears responsibility for the data being processed.
Okay.
If you're the organization utilizing the AI and determining how it's being used, what data it's processing, then you're likely the data controller. You're calling the shots, so to speak.
So if I'm using an AI tool to, let's say, analyze traffic patterns to optimize city planning, I'm the one making the decisions about how that data is used. Therefore, I'm the data controller.
Most likely, yes. But if you're relying on a third-party service where the AI provider has more control over the data and how it's processed,
Okay.
they might be considered the data controller. It really boils down to who has the ultimate authority over the data and how it's used.
Okay, so it's about understanding where the power lies in that data relationship. But even if an organization has everything in order in terms of accountability and clearly defined roles,
Yeah.
there's still the question of legal basis. You can't just use AI because it's the cool new thing, right?
Absolutely right. The IMY is very clear that any processing of data, including through the use of AI, must have a legitimate purpose and a solid legal justification. Simply claiming efficiency isn't enough.
So let's say I want to use AI to streamline our citizen service hotline responding to inquiries more efficiently. Would that be considered a legitimate reason?
It could be. The report specifically mentions how the drive for efficiency is often enshrined in regulations like the Authority Ordinance and the Administrative Procedure Act. However, you still need to demonstrate that AI is genuinely necessary to achieve that efficiency,
Right.
and that there are no less intrusive means to achieve the same outcome. It's not about just claiming efficiency, but proving it.
Okay, so you can't just slap an efficiency sticker on it and call it a day. You need to show your work, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what happens when you're dealing with sensitive data, like health records or financial information? Does that raise the bar even higher?
Absolutely. The report specifically addresses this, emphasizing that processing sensitive data requires an even stronger legal basis, often in the form of explicit laws or regulations that permit such processing. They use the example of a municipality using AI to process public document requests, which could include sensitive data.
Right.
In such cases, the legal justification must be clear, unambiguous, and directly applicable to the specific type of data being processed.
And speaking of things that might make the IMY raise an eyebrow,
Yeah.
the report also highlights some definite no-goes, particularly when it comes to automated decision-making and transferring data outside the EU.
Mm-hmm.
Can you shed some light on those areas?
Certainly. Let's start with automated decision-making. The GDPR has very strict rules regarding this, essentially prohibiting AI systems from making decisions that have legal consequences or significantly impact individuals without human oversight.
So no robot judges deciding who gets access to social services then?
Generally, no. There are some very specific exceptions, but they're limited and require robust safeguards to mitigate the risks. The report even points out that even if a human technically makes the final decision, but they're essentially rubber stamping the AI's recommendation that could still be considered automated decision-making under the GDPR.
So the AI can't be pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Got it.
Yeah.
Now, what about these third-country data transfers? I know data privacy gets a lot trickier when information crosses borders.
Right. The GDPR has stringent requirements for transferring data outside of the EUEA. If you're using an AI system that involves sending data to another country, you need to ensure it complies with specific conditions. They mention the EU-US data privacy framework as one potential pathway.
Okay.
But the main message is clear. Don't just assume you can send data anywhere. Due diligence is critical.
Okay, so we've covered the importance of data protection, accountability, having a solid legal basis.
Right.
And the red lines around automated decision-making and data transfers.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the individuals whose data is fueling these AI systems? What rights do they have in all of this?
That's a crucial aspect, and one that becomes even more intricate in the context of AI. The GDPR grants individuals several rights, including the right to access, rectify, and even erase their data. However, fulfilling these rights can be surprisingly challenging when AI is involved.
How so? Why is it harder to address individual rights when AI is part of the equation?
Well, imagine you want to exercise your right to access, and you ask an organization, what data of mine is being used in your AI system? If that system is using a vast, complex model trained on data from millions of people, it can be incredibly difficult to pinpoint exactly what data of yours was used and how.
So it's not as simple as just pulling up a file with your name on it. It's more like trying to trace a single drop of water back to its source in a vast ocean.
That's a great analogy. And that's where organizations face a real challenge.
Right.
The report stresses that they still need to make every reasonable effort to fulfill these individual rights, even if it's difficult. They suggest providing more general information about how AI is being used, explaining why specific requests might be difficult to fulfill, and even directing individuals to the AI provider if they want to try and exercise their rights directly with them.
So transparency and communication are key.
Yeah.
But even if it's difficult, the bottom line is that individual rights haven't vanished just because we're using sophisticated AI tools.
Exactly. And that leads us to another critical point, emphasized in the report, the question of security.
Ah, yes, security. This is where I start to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
AI seems so powerful, and the potential for things to go wrong feels, well, quite significant.
It's understandable to feel that way.
Yeah.
The report outlines several risks associated with generative AI, and security is certainly a major one.
Can you give me some examples? What are the potential security pitfalls we need to be aware of?
Well, one risk is overconfidence. People might start relying too heavily on AI and neglect their own judgment, which can lead to errors or even misuse. Then there's the constant threat of data leaks. If personal data is being transmitted to an external AI provider, there's always a chance of compromise.
And what about the black box problem? The fact that we often don't fully understand how AI is making its decisions? That seems like a recipe for potential security disasters.
It's a legitimate concern. The IMY highlights that lack of transparency as a risk factor. They even suggest that before deploying AI, organizations should carefully consider whether it's truly necessary or if there might be a more transparent, rule-based IT solution that could achieve the same goal.
So sometimes the simplest solution might be the most secure one. But even if an organization decides to move forward with AI,
Yeah.
there are ways to enhance security, right?
Really, absolutely. The report suggests a range of security measures,
Okay.
many of which center around the concept of human oversight. Having humans in the loop to verify the AI's output, intervene if something seems amiss, essentially keeping a watchful eye on the technology.
Okay, so a healthy dose of human skepticism is still a valuable security tool.
Hmm.
But what about on the technical side? Are there any specific measures organizations should consider?
Definitely. The report stresses the importance of strong encryption to protect data both during storage and transmission. They also emphasize access control, ensuring only authorized personnel have access to the data being utilized by the AI.
So a combination of tried and true security practices and AI-specific considerations. But wait, there's more to unpack here, isn't there?
Hmm.
The report also delves into the world of publicly available AI tools and AI that's integrated into existing software. What are the key takeaways in those areas?
That's right. They dedicate a significant portion to those types of AI, which is particularly relevant for public administrations.
Let's start with the publicly available AI tools. Everyone seems to be raving about them,
Yeah.
but I imagine there are some data protection pitfalls to watch out for.
You're catching on quickly. The report specifically warns about data leaks.
Okay,
You might be using a free AI tool to, let's say, translate a document,
right.
but you might not realize that the data you're inputting is being sent to the AI company's servers, potentially located outside the EU.
So convenience can come with hidden costs in terms of data security. What's the recommended approach for organizations?
Control, control,
Yeah.
control. The IMY is adamant that the use of publicly available AI needs to be carefully managed and overseen by the organization. They recommend developing internal guidelines to prevent employees from using unvetted AI tools without proper authorization. It's about knowing where data is going, how it's being processed, and whether there are any data protection risks involved.
So no more letting employees loose on ChatGPT without some ground rules.
Right.
Okay, now what about integrated AI? I've heard that AI is becoming increasingly embedded in the software we use every day.
It's true. AI is becoming more and more ingrained in the tools we use daily, which means your data might already be flowing through AI systems without you even being aware of it.
That's a bit unsettling. What should organizations be thinking about in this regard?
The report emphasizes the importance of clear access control and robust information management, essentially knowing what your tools are actually doing under the hood.
Right.
If you're using software with an AI component, you need to understand how it works,
Uh-huh.
what data it's accessing, and what potential risks that might entail.
So it's about understanding the inner workings of our tools and recognizing that AI might be playing a role behind the scenes. We've covered a lot of ground here. Any final thoughts on this section of the report before we move on?
I think it's crucial to remember that this is all about managing risk. The IMY isn't saying don't use AI. Their message is use it responsibly, understand the risks, and take appropriate steps to mitigate them. They're striving to find a balance between fostering innovation and safeguarding data protection, a difficult but essential task in today's world. What are your thoughts on that? What are the key takeaways that resonate with you?
I'm struck by the sheer amount of responsibility that falls on the organization using the AI. It's not enough to simply rely on the AI provider to handle everything. Organizations need to establish their own policies, procedures, and safeguards. And it's clear that this goes beyond simply complying with GDPR regulations. It's about building trust with the people whose data you're entrusted with. If you're going to utilize AI in public administration, you need to do it transparently, ethically, and with a commitment to protecting individual rights.
That's a very insightful observation, and I think it speaks to the broader ethical considerations that underpin this entire conversation. AI is a powerful tool, and with that power comes a responsibility to use it wisely and ethically.
Well said. This deep dive is really starting to reveal the intricate layers of this topic. There's so much to consider when it comes to using AI responsibly, especially in a public sector context. But I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface. Let's take a closer look at some of the technical safeguards and explore the IMY's recommendations for responsible AI implementation in part 2 of our deep dive.
As we delve deeper into the IMY's recommendations, it's fascinating how they address the balance between innovation and protection, especially when it comes to the technical aspects of AI security.
Right.
They discuss these interesting concepts called probability thresholds and temperature.
Okay. Those terms sound intriguing, but I'll admit I'm not entirely familiar with them.
Yeah.
Can you break them down for me?
Of course. Let's start with probability thresholds. Imagine you ask an AI a question like, What's the most effective way to reduce traffic congestion in the city center? Now, a human might respond with a degree of uncertainty, offering various possibilities. But AI tends to provide a definitive answer, even if its confidence in that answer is low.
Right.
That's where probability thresholds come in.
So it's like setting a confidence level for the AI's output, making sure it only provides an answer if it meets a certain level of certainty.
Precisely. You can essentially instruct the AI to only provide an answer if it's, say, at least 80% confident in its accuracy.
Okay.
This helps prevent the AI from generating misleading information or making decisions based on shaky ground.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like teaching the AI to be more cautious and responsible in its responses.
Right.
Now, what about temperature? Does that have anything to do with how much processing power the AI is using?
Not quite. In this context, temperature refers to how creative or unpredictable the AI is allowed to be. A low temperature means the AI will stick to the most likely or statistically probable responses. It's like playing it safe, staying within well-defined boundaries.
So if I want the AI to generate more innovative or outside-the-box solutions, I would increase the temperature.
Exactly. But here's the trade-off. A higher temperature also increases the risk of the AI generating outputs that are creative but nonsensical or even biased or potentially harmful.
Oh?
It's like giving the AI more freedom to explore, but also increasing the chance it might stray off course.
Ah, so it's a delicate balancing act. More creative potential also comes with more risk.
Precisely. And that's why the IMY emphasizes the need for careful consideration when adjusting these parameters. It's not just about tweaking settings. You need to fully understand the implications and potential risks and have robust safeguards in place.
That brings us back to that idea of human oversight we discussed earlier. It seems like human judgment is crucial in navigating these complex AI considerations. But how do we actually control these parameters? Is it all just complex code and algorithms?
While technical expertise is certainly involved, the report also highlights some fascinating techniques for enhancing accuracy and mitigating those risks. One such technique is called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short.
Drag. That sounds more like something you'd use for cleaning up a spill.
It is a rather amusing acronym, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's a powerful concept. Essentially, RAG combines the AI's generative abilities with access to external information sources, such as relevant documents, databases, or even the organization's own internal data.
So instead of relying solely on the AI's pre-existing knowledge, we're providing it with additional resources to work with.
Exactly. It's like providing the AI with a research assistant, giving it access to a wider pool of information to draw from.
Okay.
This helps ensure that the AI's responses are more grounded in facts and relevant context.
So if I'm using RAG and ask the AI that question about traffic congestion, it might consult transportation studies, city planning documents, even public feedback surveys.
That's precisely the idea. It equips the AI with a much richer and more up-to-date knowledge base, which in turn can lead to more accurate and insightful outputs.
This all sounds incredibly promising. But wouldn't this approach also raise data protection concerns? If the AI is accessing all sorts of external data, how do we ensure it's doing so responsibly and in compliance with GDPR?
That's a very astute observation, and it's something the IMY addresses directly.
Yeah.
They emphasize the importance of measures like authorization control, ensuring the AI only accesses information it's permitted to access. They also highlight the importance of information mapping.
Information mapping, is that like creating a detailed inventory of all the data within the organization?
That's a good way to think about it. It's about having a comprehensive understanding of what information exists within the organization, where it's stored, who has access to it, and how it's classified, especially sensitive data. This is essential to prevent the AI from accessing information. It shouldn't, particularly when dealing with sensitive data.
So it's not just about controlling the AI itself, but also about meticulously managing the data it has access to.
Right.
Sounds like quite a complex undertaking.
It certainly requires a significant level of diligence, but the IMY's message is clear. This is the level of care and attention required for responsible AI usage, particularly in the public sector, where trust and accountability are paramount.
And it's not just about avoiding legal repercussions, right? It's about upholding ethical standards and maintaining public trust.
Absolutely.
If people feel like their data is being handled carelessly, it can erode their faith in public institutions.
Absolutely. The IMY frames this issue not just as a legal matter, but also as an ethical imperative. They
Huh?
even touch upon the concept of privacy-enhancing technologies, or PETs.
Pete's,
Mm.
like those adorable robot companions people are so fond of these days.
Not quite, although I appreciate the imagery. PETs, in this context, refer to tools and techniques designed to safeguard privacy and minimize the amount of personal data being used. One example is a technique called differential privacy.
Okay, I'm curious. Explain differential privacy to me like I'm a citizen concerned about how my data is being used.
Imagine you're participating in a large-scale survey about, say, public transportation needs in the city. You might be concerned that your individual responses could be identifiable even if the survey results are published anonymously.
Right?
Differential privacy adds a layer of noise to the data, making it much harder to link specific responses back to individual participants.
So it's like subtly scrambling the data just enough to protect individual privacy, but not so much that it renders the data useless for analysis.
Precisely. It's a clever way to balance the need for data analysis with the imperative of privacy protection.
Right.
And the IMY sees PETs as a valuable tool for mitigating the risks associated with AI, especially when handling sensitive data.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but I have to admit it's also a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
It seems like there are so many layers to consider when it comes to responsible AI usage. Where do we even begin to tackle all of this?
It's understandable to feel that way. It is a complex landscape.
Right.
But the IMY is clearly making a concerted effort to provide practical guidance and support for organizations navigating these challenges. They emphasize the importance of conducting impact assessments.
Impact assessments, like an environmental impact report, but for data processing activities.
That's a great analogy. Essentially, an impact assessment is a systematic process for organizations to thoroughly analyze the potential risks associated with a particular project or activity,
Right.
in this case, the use of AI.
So it would involve identifying the data being used, how it's being processed, who has access to it, any potential security vulnerabilities, and so on.
Exactly. And the IMY is very clear that impact assessments are particularly critical when AI usage involves sensitive data or has the potential to significantly impact individuals. They even recommend consulting directly with the IMY if there are any uncertainties or questions.
So it's not just about passively reading the report and hoping for the best.
Right.
There's active support available for organizations that want to get this right.
That's right. The IMY appears to be taking a very proactive and collaborative approach to AI regulation, which is encouraging. They recognize the potential benefits of AI, but are also realistic about the risks. And they're trying to create a framework that enables innovation while safeguarding individual rights.
I appreciate that balanced approach. It's
Right.
not about stifling progress. It's about guiding it in a responsible direction.
Well said. And it's a journey we're all on together, both as individuals and as organizations.
It's fascinating to see how these technical considerations are intertwined with ethical questions. The more we delve into the IMY's recommendations, the clearer it becomes that responsible AI usage requires a multifaceted approach that encompasses both technical safeguards and ethical awareness.
I completely agree. And I think that's a perfect segue into the next part of our discussion, where we'll explore the IMY's focus on individual rights and transparency in the context of AI usage. Are you ready to dive into those aspects?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Let's continue our exploration of the IMY's report and uncover those insights. It's interesting, as we've been discussing these technical safeguards and regulations, it's easy to get lost in the weeds, but at the end of the day, this is all about people.
Right. Absolutely. Technology, especially something as powerful as AI, should serve humanity, not the other way around. And that's where the IMY's focus on individual rights is so crucial.
Right. And one of the things that really resonated with me from the report is their emphasis on the right to information. It's not enough for organizations to just be doing things correctly behind the scenes.
Right.
They need to be transparent with people about how their data is being used.
Transparency is paramount, particularly when it comes to AI, which can feel very mysterious and even intimidating to many people.
Right.
The IMY stresses that organizations need to be proactive in informing individuals about how AI is being used, even if those individuals haven't specifically requested that information.
So it's not just about responding to data access requests when they come in. It's about being open and upfront from the get-go.
Exactly. They highlight the importance of having clear, easy-to-understand privacy policies that explain in plain language how AI is being utilized within the organization. They even suggest incorporating this information into other readily accessible materials like annual reports or public-facing websites.
So it's about making information accessible and understandable, not burying it in some dense legal document that nobody ever reads.
Precisely. And I think this is where public administration has a unique opportunity to lead by example. They are entrusted with a great deal of sensitive data, and they have a responsibility to use it responsibly and transparently. By demonstrating that AI can be used in a way that respects individual rights and builds trust, they can help pave the way for wider adoption of AI in a way that benefits everyone.
I really like that idea using public administration as a model for ethical AI usage. It's not just about avoiding legal trouble or negative publicity, it's about setting a positive precedent.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating that innovation and data protection can go hand in hand, that they're not mutually exclusive.
Well, I have to say, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the complexities of using AI responsibly, especially in the context of public administration.
I agree. It's a rapidly evolving field, and the IMY is grappling with some truly challenging questions. But I think this report offers a valuable framework for organizations that are committed to using AI ethically, legally, and in a way that ultimately benefits society as a whole.
So for our listener, what would you say is the most important takeaway from this deep dive?
I think the key takeaway is this. AI is not just a technological issue, it's a human one. It's about how we as a society choose to wield this incredibly powerful tool. It's about using AI to improve our lives while simultaneously upholding the values that are important to us. And that requires careful planning, thoughtful consideration, and an unwavering commitment to transparency, accountability, and the protection of individual rights.
Beautifully put. And I think it's crucial for our listener to remember that this is just the beginning of the conversation. AI is constantly evolving, and so are the regulations and the ethical considerations surrounding its use. It's something we all need to stay informed about and engaged with.
Absolutely. This is a topic that will continue to shape our world in profound ways, and it's up to all of us to ensure that AI is used for good.
So to our listener, we encourage you to continue learning, keep asking those tough questions, and keep advocating for responsible AI development and usage. The future of AI is in our hands.
Until next time, keep diving deep.